So, hello everyone. Thank you for joining us for the Entrepreneurial Lunch and Learn offered by the Lawrence and Phil Center for Entrepreneurship at Baruch College. I'm Gary L. Smalls, the program coordinator of the Phil Center. The Phil Center for Entrepreneurship is a multifaceted division at Baruch College, offering free services and programs for the entrepreneurial community. Today's Lunch and Learn webinar is presented today by entrepreneur Morgan Mack. Morgan Mack is a New York-based candle and fragrance maker. She took a hobby and turned it into a thriving business. She's also a CUNY alum of Brooklyn College. Since starting her business, she has sold tens of thousands of candles and has been featured in Forbes. Morgan prides herself on making the best products for all her customers across the country. Thank you so much, Morgan, for being with us. Feel free to tell our audience a little bit about yourself before you start your presentation.
Hi, everybody. Like Gary said, my name is Morgan. I'm 27 currently. I started the candles about 8 years ago now. It's definitely been a wild ride in entrepreneurship, one that I never expected to be on. And I still to this day am kind of like, how did I get here? Why me in a sense? But I'm very excited to be talking with everybody and to get your questions at the end.
Awesome. You can start sharing.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen, get the presentation going. Okay. So my brief description that I just gave, my name and my age. So I graduated from Brooklyn College, I believe it was 2019. Yeah, 2019. I majored in mass communications and I minored in psychology. And I had originally gone into college wanting to be a criminal psychologist. Psychology, I just love it. I took as many classes in it as I could. But during my junior year, Rockaway Candle Co really took off, and I have my degree, but I've yet to use the psychology part of it, which maybe one day it'll come in handy, but I'm riding the wave that I'm on now. So I'll give some background on how Rockaway Candle Co started. Just after I graduated high school, I had moved out of my parents' house, and because I was now having to provide for myself, I was working two separate jobs, one of which was at a local home decor women's fashion boutique in Rockaway, where I'm from. It's called NVA. And my boss, Tara, there, she was extremely instrumental in me having Rockaway Candle Co. It was the holidays of 2014. I was very, very broke. So I made some candles, gave them as gifts. Tara was one of the people who had received said candle gifts, and she asked me to make more for the store. At first I was like, yeah, sure, like I'll make you some and you could just give me a cut of the profits, whatever. I think I made my first batch like 24 candles maybe, and they sold out in a single weekend, which is wild, because in my opinion they weren't the nicest looking. They were, the wax was colored and they were in mason jars, and they just weren't what they are today. They were very made at home hobby. So they took off selling, and Tara approached me and was like, have you ever thought about, kind of doing this as a side hustle, really making a bunch of candles, getting your branding down, getting your labels down, and seeing if this could be something? And I was like, no, I never really thought about doing this, but sure, what the heck, I'll try it. Me and her talked a lot about branding. I had no idea what finding your ideal customer is and what your brand pillars are. And I didn't know any of that. I've never taken a business class in my life. Brooklyn College had business classes and they had entrepreneurial classes, but you had to be a business major to take them, which I wasn't. And by the time the candles started, I was already so deep in my major that I wasn't going to switch, because I was like, what happens if this doesn't take off? And then I have a business degree that I don't use anything for. And so I stayed with what I had, and what I had was an experience in business. So Tara helped me out a lot. I just came up with the name Rockaway Candle Co. because it was all that I could think of at the time. And looking back now, I think that really helped me. And I think that's why the candles sold so well as they did, because the Rockaway community loves Rockaway. And so because it said Rockaway Candle Co. and they found out that it was made in Rockaway, people ate it up. That's why they sold out the first weekend. But slowly but surely, I started finding my vision. I started figuring out what I wanted them to look like. I started nailing down my scents and how to make the candle as perfect as it can be, as clean as it can be, as healthy as it can be. I started an Instagram, and I slowly moved to Etsy. And all of this was just learning step by step. I had absolutely no experience, as I've said already. I was Googling everything you could possibly Google about running a business. I was making almost every mistake you could possibly make in running a business. But I was very lucky to have a mentor in Tara, and she really did help me. And unfortunately, NDA closed shortly after I had stopped working there. I had worked in NDA starting freshman year of college, then started the candles a little bit after. And then once I graduated college in 2019, the business was making enough money for me to live off of, which was shocking. So I quit NDA to focus full time on the business. So one of the main things that I learned once I graduated college and started focusing on the business full time was how much I'm not good at. And naturally, I am a bit of a controlling person. I think to a degree you have to be when you have your own business. You have to want to have that passion to put everything you have into your product or your service. So I'm a bit controlling, and I'm a bit type A. So trying to give tasks or delegate tasks to others was a learning curve. Luckily, I learned how to do that, because without it, I don't think my business would have moved forward much. The first things that I outsourced was photography, specifically in my business, candles. And I only, well, not now, but back in 2019, I only sold online. It's kind of hard to sell candles online when somebody can't smell them. So you need your photography to be spot on, to convey a feeling, to make people say, oh my God, that looks beautiful. I really want to purchase that, even though I don't really know what it smells like. So I found a great photographer. Her name is Tina. I send all my products to her. She does all of my photography, which has been a lifesaver. It saved me on time. It saved me on stress. It saved me on money, because had I had to take all the photos myself, I would have to buy equipment, and I tried to do all that, and the photos weren't that great. If you scroll down on my Instagram forever ago, you'll see some of the original photos I took, and they're not pretty. I outsourced shipping because that's a pretty monotonous and tedious task that, if you know, people can do, and I don't have to have much hands-on with. Label printing, I used to print all of my labels myself. That just took a lot of time and a lot of energy. So now I outsource that, which has been great. And an extremely important one, bookkeeping and accounting, which I get into in a little bit, but that I think I should have outsourced first. So one of the main things that I have learned in the whole business aspect is that time is money. So I had to very much streamline everything in order to make the most out of my time, so I can also have a life. In the beginning, I was literally working 7 days a week. I was working the business Monday through Friday. And then on weekends, I would do markets and I would do shipping and I would do anything extra that needed to get done. And I was getting burnt out very quickly. And I know that when you own your own business, you have to hustle. Because how else are you going to get paid if you don't hustle? But it definitely has a downside. And that downside was I was ready to quit the business. I think it was right after 2020, which, side note, 2020 was surprisingly my best year to date, mainly because everybody was home. So they were just shopping online and ordering candles to try and make things a little bit easier for everybody. After 2020, working so hard for so long, I was burnt out. I was like, I can't do this anymore. I was very close to just selling the business, shutting the business down, and being like, I'm just going to get a regular 9 to 5 where I get paid time off and vacation days. I switched my thinking. I stopped thinking like I have to be working every second of every day to make myself a worthy business owner. I'm going to work as hard as I can in the time during the week that I will work. I even started taking an extra day off during the week. I tried out the 4-day work week. My anxiety kind of didn't let me do that for too long. So it didn't last, but I definitely think it's a smart thing. I streamlined my process with tools. I invested, I should say, into a larger wax melter. So you're melting down more wax, you can pour more candles. You pour more candles quicker, you have more time off. I also once a month take one day to work from home where I batch all of my social media content because I still do all of that myself. And I just reuse it, I recycle it. So if I'm posting something on Instagram Reels, I also post it on Facebook. I also post it in my stories. I also post it on, well, not really TikTok, I should get on that, but. And I create 5 to 8 email templates in Canva and I reuse them on a monthly basis and nobody notices. I used to spend one day a week just writing and making emails, like designing the templates, thinking that, oh, someone's going to notice that I had this one last month, so I got to do something new. Nobody notices, so I just reuse templates. It saves me so much time. The other biggest thing that has helped my business grow is finding ways to sell, but not compromising on what I love about the business. So I have kept with the candles for 8 years now because I love it, but also because it gives me so much freedom. I'm my own boss. I create my own schedule. I decide what I took today off to have this interview. And if you work for somebody else, you can't really do that. I love that. Owning a retail store doesn't mesh well with that because you have to be at the store. You have to have set hours that you're working it, unless you want to hire an employee, which is very expensive in New York because you want to pay somebody a livable wage. It's hard enough paying myself a livable wage. So I needed to find a way to get my products in front of people so that they can smell them because you can't smell things through the computer, but that also doesn't take away from my freedom. And this is a newer concept idea. I don't really see it many places, and I haven't found one in New York, and I want to eventually one day bring it to New York, or maybe one of you guys can take this idea and run with it. But there's a store in Pennsylvania. It's called Makers. I joined it in 2019. I want to say October, November of 2019. Now, the concept of the storefront, this woman, Jess, owns the store. She operates the day-to-day, but the entire store is rented out to individual makers. So it's divvied up into sections. I have a 10-foot by 10-foot space, and you can design and stock it as you see fit. So I have a photo here. Those shelves I put in myself. I pick how the products are going to be laid out. I decide on color schemes. I decide on the prices of the products. And the most amazing part is because I'm renting the space out for Jess, and there's, I believe, like 20 other makers in that space also, our rent goes towards obviously paying the building rent and also paying for somebody to work there. So I go up there once a month to restock, and that's it. That's all I have to do is travel up there once a month, restock, come home, and I get paid for not being there, for my candles selling. It's basically an automated system. You print out barcodes with prices on them, you put them on the candles. A shopper comes in, they take a candle from me, a t-shirt from somebody else, maybe some jewelry from another vendor, and they go up to one checkout counter, and it scans, and I have a login code. I can check what's selling and how much and when. It's the best way, in my opinion, to bridge the gap of having a retail space without having to dedicate your life to that retail space. I haven't found one really in New York yet that caters to handmade products. I hope one day I can open something like this in New York and have it be automated like this. One day, we'll see. Goals. So just some more details of how I specifically grew the business. The first 2 years I worked 2 jobs, I had said before, mainly because when I was working those 2 jobs while going to school and running the candles, I wanted all of the income from the candles to go back into the candles. I wanted to be able to pay for photographers, pay for ads, pay for markets, pay for exposure, like from PR companies and things like that. It's definitely not easy. I don't think I got much sleep now that I'm thinking about it, because I was going to school. I worked at NBA. I worked at a pet store also, and then I did the candles at night on the weekends. This one may seem a little bit trivial, but I posted myself on Instagram. It's kind of shocking how much more engagement I get on social media when I post myself, or more specifically my dog, which everybody seems to love, than when I post my actual products. People love seeing a face behind a brand. It humanizes the brand. It makes them know where their money is going instead of just kind of like sending it out into a void, especially something that's kind of become a luxury today with this economy, like candles. People aren't going to care to go to this supermarket and buy cereal. They don't really care who's behind that. But something that's considered a luxury, a lot of people want to know what's in it and who's making it and where their money is going. So when I post myself, I get hundreds of likes. I post a candle, I'm lucky if I break 100, Um, I even have people sometimes come up to me at markets and ask me about my dog, Stevie, because they're obsessed with her. Are they talking about the candles? No, but I'm building a connection with them. I can then, they're in my booth at markets talking to me. They're stopping me on the street and I can have a conversation with them. And that little bit, well, maybe will remind them, oh, you know what? I need a candle for a gift. Let me go through Morgan, because it creates a better brand connection in their head. I also did as many in-person markets as I can. This is a little bit specific because I have a product-based service. But again, it's candles. I needed to get them in people's hands. People want to smell them. I make way more sales when I go to markets than I do online, just because people love things that smell good. I think this could even work if you have a service-based industry. If you set up a small table somewhere, that way you can hand out business cards, hand out flyers. Because even if you're not getting sales at the market, you can always get residual sales. Somebody goes home and needs the service that you were speaking of. They have your business card. They'll hopefully reach out and call you. Okay, biggest lessons learned. I've had plenty of lessons. I'm learning a new lesson every day. Like I mentioned earlier, I've never taken a business class. So a lot of the business side of things does not come naturally to me. Label design, photography, like what I want the photo to look like, aesthetics, that kind of comes naturally to me because I'm more of a creative person than I am of a business-minded person. So I would have hired a bookkeeper and a competent one immediately. New York taxes are a beast. They are confusing. They are constantly changing. I have lost tens of thousands of dollars doing my taxes on my own because I didn't know what I was doing and I was just doing it whatever and hoping to get it over with. That way I don't have to think about it anymore. And it really screwed with me, unfortunately. Figure out your branding and voice early. I have rebranded the candles 7 or 8 times, because from the beginning, I didn't figure out what I wanted the candles to look like, because I didn't think this was going to actually be a business. So I never sat down to think, what do I want my brand to represent? What do I want the labels to look like? Who is my ideal customer? And because of that, I would just do that something, throw it together, not really like it, whatever, I'll just sell it. Let's just, get it going. Don't do that. It's so much money wasted. It's expensive to have a graphic designer draw up a brand for you, and to have to do that 7 times. It's a lot of wasted money that money can go towards much better places. And start small and start slow. Because I didn't have an ideal customer in my mind, I was just thinking from the platform of, I just want to sell as many candles to whoever. What that led to is I had 50 plus cents at one point. I had, I think, 4 products. I had a 4-ounce candle, an 8-ounce candle, a room spray, and a reed diffuser. And each of those products came in, I believe, 3 to 4 different types of vessels. So the way product-based pricing usually works is, the more you order of one single thing, the cheaper per piece it's going to be. I didn't know that. So when I started buying, I was like, oh, I'll buy some clear jars, I'll buy some amber jars, I'll buy some frosted jars, and I'll buy 50 of each. Well, that makes each jar $3. Whereas if I had bought 150 of just clear, it would have made each jar 50 cents. So then I would have made more profit per item. I didn't know any of that. I never took a business class. So I was just like, oh, I'll just buy a bunch of different things. That way, when someone's shopping, they have endless possibilities. Like, someone will have to buy it. Whew, the amount of money that I spent just trying to keep my supplies in stock was insane. Insane. If I could do it all over again, I would have started with just 1 to 2 products in one, maybe a specialty vessel, and kept it at that. Having a decent range of scents makes sense, because everybody has different scent tastes, but for the most part, keep it small, and then just put that money back into the business, and you'll be able to grow so much faster. Okay, so I included, these are some of the rebrandings that I've had to do. This is, the first one is, no, the first one is actually my second rebrand. The middle was my first ever jar, then the rebrand, and that's just some labels that I had way back when. It's kind of crazy to see now. But if anybody has any questions, they can add it to the chat, and I'll be happy to answer.
Awesome. That was literally right on time.
Oh, awesome. Okay. I was nervous that I was going to be a little bit too soon.
No, you're good. You're good.
Okay,
You're good. Yeah, and I saw the slide, so I was like, I know she's coming towards the end, so let me open it up. Thank you so much, Morgan. This is,
yeah, of course.
as someone, as you know, who's a huge fan of the product, specifically room spray. Those are my favorites. It's great to have you share this real story, and really talk about just the realities of how costly it can be when you don't really take the time to really be diligent, and just take a moment to really think thoughtfully about the product, and who is your customer. And, we run a number of different programs here at the Field Center. And a lot of times when we're doing things, it's like, who's your customer? It's like, everybody. And it's like, no.
Yeah.
Can anyone eventually become a customer? Potentially. But when you're thinking about targeting and thinking about really being focused, I think it's important to know and take that moment to really identify who your client is.
Yeah.
One of the first, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, yeah, I mean, I wish I would have done that, because, again, like, especially in this economy, money is hard to get, like, to sell things and have people trust in your product. So it's not something you should take for granted, and you should definitely spend it wisely, which I didn't know to do.
Such a good point. So the questions are flooding in as soon as I said you could throw questions. So
Mhm.
the first question I'm going to take is, how do you manage your e-commerce? Let's start there.
So I currently use Wix. I've bounced around to a few different types. I started on Etsy, I mentioned before. And then Etsy's fees were getting a little crazy, in my opinion. And I also wanted more of a traditional website. So I went to Wix. I was on Wix for a couple of years, and then I switched to Shopify, which is the preferred platform for e-commerce. Um, but when I switched to Shopify, they were very expensive, and it was out of my budget at the time. So I switched back to Wix, and I've continued being on Wix since. I don't necessarily know if I would recommend Wix for a product-based business. For a service-based business, 100%, because Wix is the leading website hosting platform for services. They've been dumping so much money into expanding that side of their platform and not so much the product-based side. There's a lot of things that I wish they integrated into their website to make my life easier to, manage my website. I do think Shopify has lowered their prices, so it is more manageable. I've been toying with the idea of going back to Shopify, but having to rebuild a website, which I do myself. I don't hire somebody to do that, and like transfer all the products. It's a lot. So I might just ride the wave of Wix for a couple more years, see how it goes. But I manage it just like anything else. Orders come in, I get a notification. I have my inventory linked onto Wix. I print out the order, I pack it. You could buy shipping labels through Wix. I personally use ShipStation. They have better discounts for bulk shipping. And yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. It's a very, it seems like a very simple question, but it's a lot that goes into it, and how even in your story, it's trial and error, right?
Yeah.
At one time, Wix is this, you're constantly pivoting as an entrepreneur based on your budget, based on where you are, and it's
Mhm.
okay to pivot, right? It's
Yeah.
okay to pivot,
And
right?
I also wish I took more time to delve deeper into what each platform allows. For example, Wix isn't partnered with Pinterest, so I can't link any of my products and sell on Pinterest, which is becoming a bigger social media platform for selling. Whereas Shopify, it is linked. Had I known that, maybe I would have gone with Shopify. The advice I would give is really, really sit down, figure out what you need for your business, and go in deep onto each platform and weigh out the pros and cons for each.
Beautiful, beautiful. Which is there's a tie-in question where it says, this is good. Being a solopreneur, how do you deal with time management and making sure to finish projects and tasks? Essentially avoiding procrastination.
Okay. I might not be the best person to talk about this. I literally made this presentation last night at like 10 o'clock. Um, I struggle with procrastination, especially because I am my boss. So I have nobody telling me this is your deadline. I have no like immediate consequences if I don't get something done on time. I think my saving grace is I use it's a website called Notion. It's notion.com. It's free to use. I basically built it out as my agenda. And I have an app on my phone and I check it constantly and I build out time slots. So I give myself, I mean, I've been doing this 8 years. So I know how long it takes me to pour a batch of candles. I know how long it's going to take me to ship, pack and ship orders. I build out like hour blocks. So I'll say from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. I'm pouring candles. And then from 1 p.m. to 1:15, I'll have my lunch. 1:15 to 2:30, I'll do X, Y, and Z. I also try and designate time where I'm not doing any work. Because if I constantly feel like I need to be doing work, I'm not going to have any energy to actually do said work. So building in time to relax is the best, and avoiding procrastination, that's hard because that really has to do with the type of person. Like I'm a procrastinator, but I'm also so afraid to let anybody down. So I try my best, like that fear of letting somebody down or not getting somebody's order to them on time outweighs the desire to procrastinate.
Ooh, man. And I know why that question came up because as college students and even as adults and procrastination sometimes it's a real thing,
Oh yeah.
right? And some of us feel like we're more productive when it's like that fire is lit,
Mhm.
right? So I'm glad you would be, that you shared the real and how, how you really deal with it to this day, right? To this day as a business owner. This is a great question. How do you get clients to prefer your candles over all the other candles that pre-existed before yours?
Yeah, that is a really good question. So I would say when I first started and I didn't have my formulas, like my scent to wax ratio or anything like that down pat, I think what made people prefer me is one, it was handmade, and two, I was a local, young girl trying to kind of make it in the business world. I think people saw that and they immediately were like, oh yeah, I'll buy the candle solely to support me and less about the candle itself. About a year in, when I started getting my formula down pat and I really leaned heavy into eco-friendly, healthy, um, that's what people started buying the candles for. I heavily marketed that it is handmade, that I quality control every single product that I am making because I'm the only one who makes them. Um, People wanted that. People want to know what they're bringing into their home, what they're literally lighting on fire and breathing in. I think that's what people also became very, very health conscious in the last, I would say, 5 to 10 years. So that also helped that I was like a healthy eco brand.
That is a great question, great answer connected. Because I know a lot of times it's like, wow, like how do I? And there is so much competition, right? We
Mhm.
were talking about in a class yesterday, we talking about liquid death, right? Canned water, right? We were talking about that in class, but there's been water brands out before, right? So sometimes as aspiring business owners, we're sometimes discouraged because we feel like, well, there's already a ton of candles out there.
Yeah.
How can I make my footprint?
I think what you really have to do is lean into your niche. So find what makes you unique or find what makes your product unique and really, really shine a light on that and push it. I think Liquid Death does really well because it kind of teeters the line of, is this water? Could it be alcohol? Their packaging is very innovative, very different, and it's also eco-friendly. It's recyclable. It's a metal can.
That was a good point. Very good point. Oh, great question. What is your best advice for acquiring customers after you've identified your customer?
Social media. Social media and then email and text marketing. Those I those are what I rely on. I don't put a whole lot of money into ads like Facebook ads or Instagram ads, mainly because I don't really know what I'm doing in that sector. I've never really taken advertising classes. I'm learning, I'm taking courses, so I'm going to start doing it. But social media is free. Posting is free. Posting consistently is free. So that's the first step I would do to maintaining clients. If you are constantly posting, you're on the forefront of their mind. If you're having your links readily available in your social media to go and purchase, it makes it easier for them to purchase. Also, they have so many ways to text your customers, sending them a text like, hey, we're having a sale. Hey, we're doing this. Hey, my service for the month of October is 25% off. Getting it right in their face is how you're going to be able to keep clients and have them coming back. You have to constantly remind people that you're there and remind people that your product is good. So that's how I would say to keep clients coming back. It's just to keep reminding them that you're there through, social media, through texts, through emails.
It's so funny you said that, right? As a business owner, I was having a conversation. One of my friends is also an entrepreneur. He's an artist. He's a musician, and we were just talking about how, hey, like Coca-Cola, whether you like them or not, or drink it or not, they've been around for decades and they still spend millions of dollars on marketing.
Yeah.
Still, right? They have not rested on the fact that we're Coca-Cola. You know who we are, right? They're constantly making an effort to push past the noise because the market has other players, right? So I love the fact that you're like, be present. And I think sometimes, especially as young adults, as college students, we don't want to come off as annoying,
Yeah. I have a hard time with that too, especially
right?
because I'm not a natural salesperson. I don't want to force somebody to buy something that they don't want. Um, I think there's a nuanced way of doing it where you're not like the typical car salesman, pushy guy, but that you're just like, hey, I'm here. This is what I have, and this is what makes it good. If you want it, here's the link, you know?
Right, right. Because how, so many people have great products and services that no one's ever heard of.
Yeah.
Great things, no one's ever heard of them,
And I
right?
mean, if you have the money to put into ads, by all means, go and do it. Research what ads work best, but the thing with ads is you're putting money on the line for possibly something that's not going to reach, something that's not going to hit, that's not going to get the right customers that you want. So that's a little risky. I always say start with what's free first.
Very good. Good, good. Such a good point. And this question ties in with the social media question. How do you keep up with the algorithms of social media and marketing your products? Great question.
That's a great question. It's also a hard question because when you say social media, there's so many apps. There's Facebook, which has a different algorithm than TikTok does, which has a different algorithm than Instagram. What I personally do is I reuse content across all boards, and I follow on Instagram specifically people who do this for a living, who are social media managers for a living. They will often post in their Instagram stories and on their page tips, tricks like, hey, update the algorithm change to this. If you have it in your business budget to hire a social media person, amazing, because they're going to be trained in this. They're going to know exactly what to do. But if you don't have that budget, then follow a bunch of social media people, see what they're posting, see what they're talking about, and reuse that for your own content. Because the algorithm changes constantly. It would be a job in itself to try and like track it constantly and consistently. When you're a solo entrepreneur, you have to wear a million hats. You have a million things to do. Uh, just the easiest way to do it is to try and, like, as you're scrolling, see what people are talking about, and then the next time you post, adjust things and see how it works. Everything's trial and error, and especially with social media, nothing's really guaranteed because of how often it's changing.
So good. So good. Because even when I talk to even myself and when I talk to my friends who have businesses, and some of them are actually on this call right now, trying to catch the algorithm becomes like, now we're all data scientists and like, you're
Yeah,
spending so much time trying to adjust to the algorithm that you're not spending as much time on the thing that makes you great.
yeah, agreed. I mean, the next thing I want to outsource is my social media because it's a lot to handle. And for me anyway, I tend to get a little bit discouraged when things aren't performing as well as I would like them to on social media. But for the time being, I can't. So I do what I can on the day to day, and I try not to pressure myself too much. I post as often as I can. I know currently right now, reels and like video content is where it's at. So I'm trying to record myself doing my work and pouring things and going to markets as much as I can, just so I can post it because that's what's reaching people.
Nice. Beautiful. I know some of my entrepreneur friends and community, we're here. So there's a lot of gems happening. I hope you guys are taking notes. Next question. This is a really, really, really good question. Between my demanding career and motherhood, I always seem to find an excuse to take action in entrepreneurship, though I have a great product that I believe in. I know there's not a follow-up question is, but I'm going to suspect that is like, how do we get over that hump, right, of having a demanding career and motherhood to actually get to the place where she can actually actualize or begin to actualize her idea? What would you say?
So I'm not a mother to a kid, I'm a mother to a dog. But so I can't even imagine how hard, like having a business is like a baby in itself. So I can't imagine having a living, breathing child and trying to run a business. My advice would be try and find some sort of support system, whether it's a partner that you have, a good friend, family members, to help take a load off of the, you know, like child care. That way you can have some time to yourself to focus on your business. And even if right now you just don't have it in you or you don't have that support system, that's okay. Take some time. I'm sure as the child gets older, you might, and they're going to school, you might have some more free time to really focus on the product. I know that in like the whole entrepreneurial world and the business world, there's that idea of like, if you don't move now, if you don't launch your product now, the world is going to end, you know, and it's like that go, go, go hustle mentality, um, which can sometimes be to your detriment, you know, like if you have a child right now and that needs, you know, they need your attention, then give them your attention. If your product is great, it'll also be great next year if you launch it. It'll also be great 2 years if you launch it. Um, but if you want to launch it now, streamline things. Figure out a way to get the most done in the shortest amount of time, whether that be batching content, pre-writing emails during nap time and scheduling them to send out, sticking on Etsy instead of building out a whole website. Just do things that might make things a little bit easier as you slowly, you know, work your sales up to hire out for people.
Nice. Right, that level of doing what you can when you can. And I feel it. I know many of our entrepreneurs on this Zoom feel like if I don't launch in the next 60 seconds, the world is gonna end. And the advice you gave was beautiful. Like, you know what? Give yourself some grace, because I think we are slowly pivoting from a hustle culture into more of a, you know, there's some, still there's a hustle element to what we do and being an entrepreneur, but also being a little mindful that this journey of entrepreneurship, as rewarding as it can be, and you spoke about freedom, there's also another side of it to it, that if we're not careful, we can literally lose ourselves in this process.
Yeah, I mean, my dad is an independent carpenter. So he's owned his own business my whole life. He worked 7 days a week. And I think that's where I kind of got it from. And it was a bit toxic, you know, like watching somebody work constantly and never really be around. I learned, okay, I have to work constantly in order to value myself, especially now that my paycheck is relying on myself. And over the last, I think since COVID, last 2, 3 years, I've really been trying to focus on giving myself grace, giving myself time to realize that my value isn't in how much work I produce, how much money I produce. My value isn't just being a human, period. And yes, I do hustle and I do work hard because I do love this job and I want to make money from it. But if I hustle so much that I burn myself out, I'm not going to have a job to come back to. It's about finding that balance of work and rest, work and rest.
And you did the college journey, I did the college journey. We have some people doing the college journey right now, many of us, where if the one thing when I look at back just at the college, my collegiate journey, is I wish I'd have took better care of myself. Right.
Yeah.
I wish I would have took better care of myself. And thinking about how much more productive we can be when we take care of ourselves. I think
Mm-hmm.
sometimes the hustle coach is like, sleep when you die. And it's like, well, you're gonna die because you're not sleeping.
Yeah.
So like,
Yeah.
get some rest. And rest doesn't always mean, going to sleep. It can just sometimes just being still and just
Mm-hmm.
centering yourself, or maybe going for a walk, getting in nature. Rockaway, we have the honor of being in Rockaway, so we can walk to the beach whenever we like.
Yeah.
So that's a beautiful thing as well. We have a question, and you spoke a little bit towards the end, and this comes in the form of, how do you manage your expenses, and are there ones that you automate? And then the next part of that question is, when did you start to outsource, in the chronological order of like when you outsourced, like what you outsourced first?
Okay. So when I first started back in 2015, the first thing I did, which I'm happy I was smart enough to know, is I got a separate business checking account. So, personal money and business money always stayed separate, which helped a lot in being able to see what's going out and going to where. The first 2 years of the business, I didn't take a paycheck. I didn't take any cut. All the money went back into the business to help grow. So when it comes to automations, I have certain things automatically pulling out, like, my rent, my internet bill that I have to pay for the studio. What else? Canva is automated. Things that I have to use every single month, that's automated. And then I have a spreadsheet in that website that I said about before, Notion, where I put everything in. So every single month, my, internet bill is the same. Every single month, the rent for my workspace is the same. That's all automated. What changes month to month is the supplies I need. This is the tricky part that I need to learn to get better at. Because I have so many products and each product has different supplies needed for each, it gets a bit hard tracking how many, like how much money I'm going to need for, let's say, jars, for wax, especially because my business is kind of seasonal. So during the holidays and winter, I spend more. With that, I have my bookkeeper for, and I hired her, what is it? It's 2023. So end of 2021, I believe I hired her, especially after 2020 when I had an influx of sales coming in. So I had an influx of money, and then I had an outflux of money because I was buying more supplies in larger quantities, and I needed to make sure everything was going where it needed to go. So I hired her. I would highly recommend hiring a bookkeeper or a accountant as early as you possibly can. You can find ones that are, relatively in your budget. They can be a little bit pricey. I think my accountant and bookkeeper, she's like $300 a month, depending on, how many transactions. And she uses what's called Wave. It's like a version of QuickBooks, but it's free, which is great. And it just has my checking bank account linked, and she goes through it every single month and she says, okay, this was supplies, so that goes into supplies. This was payroll, this goes into payroll. And it makes things easier for tax season. I'm horrible with taxes. I'm horrible with numbers. So that's why I had a lot of trouble doing my own taxes in years prior. And that's why I definitely wish that I had hired her sooner. Managing the money has been a bit of a learning curve. And I'm sure with anybody, it's going to be a bit of a learning curve because it's money that's yours, but not yours. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, you want to spend it how you want to spend it, but you also need to spend it in a way that's viable for the business. So I usually wait a little bit, like, okay, I want to get a brand new wax melter. Do I necessarily need it? No. Would I love to have it? Yes. So I wait till I have, like, I hit a certain sales goal. And once I hit that sales goal, I'm like, okay, I can order this and it's viable for the business. Everything else that's a need, rent, supplies, I order as I need them and they come in.
Awesome. And thank you for keeping it real. And this is what we want, where it's like, hey, I really want that new wax machine. I want it. I want it. Do I need it?
Yeah.
Right. And being that you are essentially working this business on your own, you really only have to answer to you. But what if you are not, what if you are getting in your way, right? So you have to be self-aware and be honest, and also be exercise some level of self-control, because you are responsible if you want to see this thing thrive.
Yeah, definitely. I think, and to touch on the question again, or outsource in chronological order, I think that will depend on the business that you have. That will depend on your own strengths. For example, if you are a numbers person, you might not need to outsource the bookkeeper soon. But let's say you're horrible at social media, you might want to outsource that first. It all just completely depends on your strengths and your weaknesses. I kind of did mine backwards, I should have did bookkeeper first, maybe photographer last, because I could have probably figured out the photographer thing. But again, I didn't know what I was doing. I was just like, you know what? I'll hire the photographer. You know, it's within my budget. We'll see how that goes. And I'm happy I did, but it all depends on strengths and weaknesses of the individual business owner.
Awesome. And we do a lot of that work through our program and of helping students work with a lot of the work and programs we do are collaboration events, right? Collaboration programs, because as many students want to do it on their own, we want to get students in the habit of collaborating and connecting with people who have strengths that they may lack.
Mm-hmm.
And not being afraid of, and you spoke about this in the question I'm about to ask is connected to it, asking for help,
Yeah.
asking for help. I know sometimes we want to do things on our own because there is a level of control and a level of like, I know who can do it better than me. No one. But at a certain point, you have to let go and allow others, if you want to thrive, allow others to take on some of these other roles. With that being said, do you see yourself adding any employees anytime soon?
So I've had an employee. Her name is Shannon. She worked for me through end of 2019, all of 2020, and then into 2022. So she was with me for a few years. She worked for me part-time because she was in nursing school. So she stopped working with me, unfortunately, when she got her nursing degree, and she's now in the hospital, whatever. But it was great. I loved having her there, especially because working alone can be very lonely and isolating, and like, you know, I don't have anybody to talk to as the day goes on, like you normally would in a 9 to 5 with coworkers. But she handled all of my shipping for me, and she handled a lot of the markets for me. Um, I don't necessarily know if I would ever hire anybody to take on production, because I really like to be hands-on with the quality of my products, because that's like a major selling point. But I would love to hire somebody. It's just also, New York is hard. It's tough, especially with the rising costs of living in this state. And I don't want to pay somebody below minimum wage or like an unlivable wage. I would want to pay something well above what the minimum is, and that's hard. My business is also a Schedule C. It's just like, it's not an LLC, it's a whole different thing, which means if I hire somebody, I have to have them on payroll, health insurance, I would have to get workers' comp, which is a whole beast in itself. Right now, I'm managing. I'm managing on my own. I'm okay. I definitely would maybe want to hire somebody to do shipping for me, do that part-time. Um, Hopefully one day I can. You know, like the goal one day is to have a warehouse and have 10 plus employees and have it be thriving. Right now, I'm comfortable just doing it on my own.
Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. And the last question, even though there's plenty others, um, where do you see Rockaway Candle Co. in the next 5 years?
5 years. That would make me what? 32, 33. Um, that's a tough question because I go back and forth. A part of me wants to have it stay the same, be kind of small, be manageable, you know, be able to buy a house one day and move the business into the house, you know, like operate out of a garage or something to make things easy and simple. Like a part of me really wants like a simple, easy life. And then the other part of me was like, I want to own a store and I want to have a warehouse and I want to have all of these employees and do all of these things. So I go back and forth. I think realistically, in the next 5 years, I can see myself having a communal retail space like the one I spoke about that I'm a part of in Pennsylvania. I definitely think that's a probability. And having maybe 1 to 2 employees and moving out of the studio space I'm in now to something a little bit bigger, but not necessarily a warehouse, medium sized. Yeah, I think that's realistic, hopefully, if things continue the way they are.
If listen, the way you're going and where you're tracking, and I know you're gonna get a host of IG follows. There's gonna be some folks. There's even a question, and we're wrapping. Right, that was the last question. There's a lot of encouragement in the chat as well that I'll share with you once we like officially end. But there was a question about are you open to taking on mentees, those who are interested, folks that are on an entrepreneurial journey? We ever consider on taking on mentees?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I also fully admit that I have my limits. I'm not going to know like the answer to everything. My journey is very specific to me and the type of business that I have and the type of problems that I've run into. I also tend to think that like I'm not like, what do I know? Why do they want to know from me? But definitely, I will try and help whoever out to the best of my ability, the most that I can. I'm not opposed to it at all.
Yo, your LinkedIn, IG, all that good stuff. Just
I don't
letting you
even
know.
have a LinkedIn. Oh, see,
Yeah,
there's things
business.
that I'm like, oh, I need to figure out.
Oh man, I want to thank you, Morgan, for spending time with us and presenting. We appreciate you being with us. Thank you for all of you guys for participating with us as well.
Yeah,
Please
thank
be
you, everybody.
Yes, please be on the lookout for our follow-up email with today's recording. And we hope to see you guys at our next Lunch and Learn, which is going to be on October 18th, 2023. And the name of that is going to be How to Cultivate a Growth Mindset for Business Success. And it will be on Zoom as well. So follow us on Instagram. You can go to our website. You can register for it now. And we will see you then. Thank you all. Thank you, Morgan.
Thank you. Thank you guys for having me. I loved it. It was great, talking to everybody.